Hi everyone, I'm Pashkar and welcome to the Global HR Blueprint. In this series with Exceed College, we'll explore how HR practices across Africa, the Americas, Eurasia, and the Oceanic region work. It's all about leadership, culture, challenges, and what works best. So let's get ready and let's start the lesson. So here's a key statement. International human resources management is key to how global companies manage talent across borders. In a connected world, understanding culture, legal, and economic differences help organizations become smarter, manage better, and build fair and inclusive workplaces. We really want to take a look at that in a more in-depth way in this presentation. So it's important that we look at the diversity that the world brings in the different regions and amplify how it is important to work within those regions. In Africa, and especially South Africa, HR is shaped by strong community values and traditional structures. While informal hiring is still common, companies like MTN and Vodacom are leading the shift towards digital recruitment and structured pipelines. Right, so leadership in Africa tends to be paternalistic, with senior leaders seen as more moral guides. Despite tech and infrastructure gaps, programs like Vodacom's Youth Academy and MTN's graduate schemes show how training and social investment growth can last and grow talent. But it's important to remember that within South Africa, there is one major factor in terms of how companies hire, and that is BEE. That stands for Black Economic Empowerment. In 1994, when South Africa became a democracy after apartheid, it was a centerfold to allow for young black youths to come through the system. And BEE was the cornerstone of that. What it essentially meant is that a certain percentage of the hiring power needed to be allocated towards black upliftment and black growth. Currently, it is a structure that still exists within South Africa, which means there is some geopolitical issues around it. However, it's important to understand that the premise of why BEE existed in South Africa is for hiring of those who came from previously disadvantaged communities. Moving away from South Africa, now in the Americas, and particularly the US and Latin America, HRM is dynamic and technology driven. US companies such as Google emphasize innovation, diversity, and transparency. In contrast, Latin American companies balance care oriented leadership with performance based expectations. So we really see here that there is a different culture in both societies, one that drives AI and drives innovation and technological advancements, and the other, which is really a mentorship kind of orientated culture that looks at growing and mentoring individuals as they are hired. So there is a different approach to the different workforces that are presented in the different regions of the Americas. So it's important to understand when approaching that if you are going into North America, it's very technologically driven and, of course, information driven, whereas in South Americas or the Latin Americas, it's more about how they can grow their staff in an organic way. Google's approach to blending transformational leadership, individualism, and psychological safety, they use AI and analytics in HR and focus on employee well-being. In Latin America, this model is adapted to fit local preferences of hierarchy and collective culture. So it's important to see that there is a big difference. Google, for what it stands for really, is all-inclusive, all open environment. And really, what that makes is that there is a flexibility and a duality within Google's setup to allow for individuals to find their own space, to find their own niche, and grow within the company. So it is, without saying, a bit more loose and perhaps a bit more organic. But the approach, nonetheless, is really to help those that are within the company achieve their maximum potential. So you can argue that this is innovative in its own right and important to how companies should look to develop their employees going forward. Eurasia shows vast diversity. European firms like Unilever use structured law compliance systems and inclusive decision making. In Asia, companies like Tata lean on seniority, loyalty, and value based management. In Europe, there is a drive to be more multi layered, and that is because of regulations across borders. This makes HRM more dynamic and flexible, but more costly. In Asia, generational divides make companies seem less transformational. It's important to look at these dynamics when looking at hiring individuals, as of course, within Europe, you have to look at the fact that you are hiring across different countries and different regions that have different geopolitical ramifications and also laws that link to that societies or those societies rather. Whereas in Asia, it is more of an approach of that we all work together to get the best outcome. Now, moving back to Unilever promotes localized HR policies through global learning academies, whereas Tata invests in leadership and CSR. Challenges include managing across legal frameworks and shifting generational expectations, but both firms amplify accountability and adaptability. It is important to understand that when looking at these particular companies that are global players, that they have to adapt, improvise, or else they won't survive in the different regions that these companies trade in. In the Oceanic region, including Australia and New Zealand, HRM practices focus on equality, well-being, and work-life balance. If we look at Ants Bank, it's a standout example of prioritizing employee empowerment, structured onboarding, and wellness programs that are beneficial and suit all that work within its framework. Now, leadership traits within this region is empathetic and consultative. Really, cultural traits include low power distance and individualism, and promotes more open communication and inclusive recruitment that reflects the oceanic values of fairness and social inclusion. It's really important that there is a balanced approach when looking to hire or looking to employ staff within this region because it's all about the balance of work-life balance that's important to this society and of course in getting the best out of employees within the region. So the table you see in front of you really compares leadership styles, cultural dimensions, and recruitment strategies across the four regions. For example, while Africa prefers a paternalistic model, really the Americas adopt an innovative tech-driven approach. Recruitment varies from informal networks to AI support systems, and you can see that from the different regions on show. Here we compare training performance, management, and compensation. In the US, training is data driven and performance is KPI based. In Africa, it leans on partnerships of development, while Eurasia focuses on CSR and structured feedback. The oceanic regions, of course, really look at coaching and well being as the number one most important factor in terms of how we look at HR within the region. To conclude, effective HRM depends on adapting to culture, economic, and legal differences. Companies like Google, Tata, Unilever, and Ants succeed because they're tailored global HR structures to local realities. Really, further trends include AI and hybrid work, inclusion, and sustainability. These shifts will continue to redefine how we manage people globally. That's it from me, Pashkar. Until next time, we'll see you again.